I mean, the idea of having a shared vision, I mean, the temple is actually a very good illustration of that. That there is a point, and that also means you accept the idea that at the centre of all things there is the divine. You can't have a secular temple. It's a contradiction in terms. What I'm talking about this week at the summer school is how the tradition of the temple was manipulated by a Protestant type group in ancient Israel. And the original purpose of the temple pilgrimage was that you went to the temple to see the face of the Lord. Yeah? Mm-hmm. In the old calendars, each of your males will see the face of the Lord, and the verb is pointed as a kal. By the time you're reading the Masoretic texts we have now, each of your males will be seen in the presence of the Lord. It's pointed as a nifal.
Oh, really?
It's been changed because the idea that you saw the presence of God was unthinkable. So they said, well, okay, you appear in the presence of God. You present yourself in the temple. So there was this big sort of, do you find the presence of God in the temple? And the Protestant, the Deuteronomy said, oh, no. But the old one said, yes, you do. In the temple, that is where you see the presence of God. You get it in the Psalms, shine forth and this kind of thing. And yet there was this sort of Protestant element that put overlaid a new layer in Old Testament development of the texts. And they eliminate all the idea that God can be seen. Isaiah, I saw the Lord. The Deuteronomists, Deuteronomy 4, at Sinai, you saw no form, you only heard a voice. Yeah. You can't have those two side by side. They're direct contradictions. Jesus says, blessed are the pure in heart, they see God. So we know which side, the church is on. And it's this sort of thing within the shared vision. What is it a vision of? It's also very interesting.
There's a new book by Hamori called, I think it's called When God Had a Body. And it's about the Ish theologies, or theophanies in the Old Testament. Just
hugely important.
Yeah, looking at, where God appears as a human.
Form as the Adam. Oh, yes.
And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
what's the author's name?
I think it's Hamori, and I think the title is When God Had a Body.
I'll try and find that.
But I can email you the full reference.
I would be very interested
because I've got it back on my computer.
Because that is something that's so important. The vision of the Adam, the Ezekiel, the likeness of the glory of the Lord is Adam. What were they seeing? And then there was this next generation of the generations that said, no, we don't like that, we're not comfortable with that. And so that's all kind of literally pointed out. Mm-hmm. Or where you can't point it out, you're forbidden to explain it, because the Ezekiel chariot text, you're forbidden to expound that in public. Right. And the Aaron blessing, may the Lord make his face shine upon you. You are not allowed to translate that or explain it. So when you come to the Targums, it's Aramaic, and then it's all in Hebrew, you don't translate it, and then you carry it. And it's absolutely forbidden. Mishnah Megillah, you may not expound in public the blessing of the priests or the chapter of the chariot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because there's certain things you mustn't know.
Well, when it says you come before the Lord, doesn't it say Lipnei Yahweh? I mean, to the face of the Lord? That is, before the Lord is literally to the face.
You have Yireh or Yireh, depending on how you point it. And then sometimes you just have B'nai Adonai. Sometimes you have El B'nai Adonai. But the Samaritan text, interestingly, said Et B'nai Adonai.
Oh.
So we know that somebody thought it was, you are seeing the face of the Lord. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. So someone's been at work changing the dots, and we know which way.
Yeah.
But you see, it's this idea of seeing the Lord in human form that is the antecedent to the incarnation.
I know, exactly.
And the early church talked about fulfillment. And then you can honestly say, not. Because the usual way we're reading those texts now, there's no antecedent. It's crazy. Yeah. Completely crazy. So you repoint the old calendars, and you say, let's read what the Psalms actually say. All this fluff and flower, read what they say. And of course, people's eyes are wide open. I've been doing a very little bit in my morning session here, at 10:15 to 11:15 every morning. And I've been watching their reactions. To start with, they were all studiously taking notes like this. And then after all, they stopped taking notes and just listened. Absolutely fantastic to watch. And now they come in. This morning they started like this on the edge of their seats. It's terrific. It's very, very simple. Absolutely simple. What did it mean? You know, when St. John says, Isaiah said this because he saw him and spoke of his glory, John chapter 12. What did it mean by that? And then John's emphasis, you know, we have beheld the glory. What does it mean? And then you show them some Targum texts. Some haven't seen those before, so they're all, and of course in English it's not, oh crumbs, we've got to translate this lot. Huge excitement, and that's lovely to see people excited.
Yeah, it really is.
It really is, and they're going to go home with a buzz, and that's good. And I feel I've done a useful job, even though I'm a bit.
And they'll probably buy a book or two and pursue it further, right?
Who knows? Yeah. I mean, it's nice to do the Hebrew classes there because these are people who obviously got enough Hebrew to be able to appreciate that if you repoint at Kalas and Nifal, it changes the meaning, and that sort of thing. And looking at all the last night we were looking at the Melchizedek text in Genesis 14, who gave the tithe to whom. Of course, when you look at the Hebrew, it's completely ambiguous. And we've translated one way because the letter to the Hebrews says you translate it that way. Just as easily be the other. So he could. And then Melchizedek, was that a name? Or was that his title?
Yeah.
And I thought about that. And who did Melchizedek worship? Was it El Elyon or someone called Yahweh El Elyon? Of course, Yahweh only got put into the text much later. It was originally El Elyon. And of course, you've got there the Father and the Son, the two divine figures. But later scribes did a bit of fudging, you know, and nobody really thinks about it. Not at all.
And this is forthcoming in your Melchizedek conference in a couple months, right? I mean, some of these issues are going to be pursued.
These are some of the things that we should be talking about, yes. I mean, what happened. But these were some of the things that I flagged up very, very briefly in a kind of skeleton form in that little paper I did in San Diego. Huge fun to do, but gosh, I can't stand that sort of heat. Oh, stepping outside the air conditioning in San Diego was, whoa, you know, I'm just not used to it, I can't cope, you know, I prefer the English rain. But yeah, that the whole issue of who that, I mean, I think Melchizedek was a theophany of Yahweh. The Jewish interpretation, certainly the next passage, Yahweh is the great high priest, and he is the one, as you have in the temple, you know, the great high priest is Yahweh, and he is the priest to God Most High. So you've got a hierarchy of priests. And I think that's how Genesis 15 was interpreted, where in the Apocalypse of Abraham sees what's clearly Melchizedek, but he describes him as Yahweh, or the angel Yahweh, and he's dressed as a high priest with his purple and his mitznefet, his turban thing. And yes, it's very, very interesting. Yeah. And once you just say that Melchizedek's God is Yahweh, then you say, well, it can't possibly be Melchizedek. But it's only the later Jewish text that has Yahweh as Melchizedek's God. All the other earlier sources, Philo, the Genesis Apocrypha, all the other older ones, Melchizedek is the priest of El Elyon, almost certainly part of the great angel hierarchy. I mean, the implications of that for Melchizedek priesthood is just mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. So there's a lot of work for an awful lot of people to do, waiting to be done. Oh dear, it'd be nice if we didn't need sleep. We get such a lot more done, because we do need sleep.